reality of pity, which had spread wider and wider, and whose grip infected even philosophers with its disease, was the most sinister symptom of our modern European civilization. Good afternoon, I'm Caleb Takis, and what you just heard was Friedrich Nietzsche's take on the issue I've come to discuss with you today. That being that the ways we think and feel in our morality on a whole stem from an echo chamber. Difference between us is I don't think modern quite cuts it. So I went back 2,400 years to prove it. I examined the works of Aristotle and Immanuel Kant, two of history's most notable and prominent moral philosophers, and found striking trends between them. But beyond that, I'm human. And if my passivity on matters like these has led me astray, I would certainly want to know. And I think you all would as well. And so, in order to prove this echo chamber to you today, I will start with Immanuel Kant's Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals from 1785, then transition to Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics from 350 BCE. And lastly, to tie them together and to show that there are definitive, solved components of this echo chamber, I will touch on a book called Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis from 1952. But first up is Immanuel Kant, who developed a philosophy called deontology, which is an ethics of duty. And within deontology, there is the categorical imperative and moral laws. The categorical imperative can be defined as an absolute command that we must follow without exception. And moral laws are more down-to-earth components of that, such as do not lie, cheat, steal, etc. He begins by saying that if an action is thought of as good in itself, then the imperative is categorical. And he also states that for a law to hold morally as a basis for someone's being obliged to do something, it must imply absolute necessity. This all to say that, at least according to Immanuel Kant, there are categorically right actions, and that at some point in our life, we must take them. And a step beyond that even, he believes we must be pure of reasoning when we take those actions. He gives an example on page 8 of his book of a shopkeeper who chooses not to overcharge what he calls an inexperienced shopper, likely a child, but only for sake of his public reputation. This shopkeeper did the morally correct thing, but for a morally ambiguous reason. And Immanuel Kant still calls that shopkeeper immoral, meaning that it must be our pure intention to follow the moral laws, establishing an idea of right states or right intentions, which I'll circle back to later. Now I could go on, but these are the basics I need for deontology. So let's move on now, or rather backwards, to Aristotle's virtue ethics. The first words in his book are every craft and every discipline, and likewise action and decision seems to seek some good. And when he says good, it's important to note that he usually means an objective or an end goal of some sort. And later, he goes on to define happiness as the highest of these goods and calls it the only intrinsic good, when he states, happiness then is apparently something complete and self-sufficient, as it is the end of the things achievable in action. And speaking of action, he also tells us how we can reach happiness, stating that it requires both complete virtue and a complete life. Now he defines virtue loosely as habituation, cultivation, and learning applied to a person and to their life, meaning that we must become active in seeking happiness. We must grow and cultivate ourselves and take what he would call virtuous action to achieve it. Additionally, on another note, when it comes to our minds and our emotions, he believes in a thing called the proper virtuous median. As an example of this, we should all have some anger, be angry at certain things or injustices in the world, but overall not too much or too little at any given time. And additionally, he believes, and I quote, "We must have these feelings at the right times, about the right things, towards the right people, for the right end, and in the right way, to remain virtuous." Again, speaking on this idea of right states. Now, again, I could go on, but these are the basics I need for virtue ethics. But before I move on, I'd like to pose a couple questions. By show of hands here, would you hope that more often than not, you're doing the right thing, or at least a good thing? And second of all, do you consider and care about why you do the things you do, or even think the way you do? Now, technically, we only have a limited audience, but 100% of my audience just raised their hand. And to me, that says the proof is in the pudding, as those are two of the three criteria outlined by C.S. Lewis in his book, Mere Christianity, or as he calls them, the 3 parts of morality. Now, he spends a whole 20-page section of his book on these 3 parts, but I'll give us the basics so that we can go back and compare. The first of these 3 parts is what he calls fair play and harmony between individuals. The second is what he says is tidying up or harmonizing the things inside each individual. And the third is a concern with the general purpose of human life as a whole. Now, let's line these up against what we see from Aristotle and Immanuel Kant. As far as the purpose of life goes, it's a little looser, but both of them outline a purpose. Aristotle, a little more obvious, is guiding us towards happiness throughout our life. And Immanuel Kant, given a little more subtle, is teaching us how to be good people. Additionally, they also both speak on this idea of this fair play between individuals, or what I have been calling right actions, whether it be Aristotle's virtuous actions or Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative. And lastly, they both also speak on this idea of the tidying up inside the individual, whether it be a pure intention to follow the moral laws or a proper virtuous medium. Point being, all 3 of them speak on the exact same points, make it the core of their philosophies. Now, I won't speak for anyone else, but I find that far too similar to be a coincidence. But now that the evidence is out, let's review. I have now covered Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Immanuel Kant's groundwork for the metaphysics of morals, and C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. And I have shown they are similar to a degree that cannot be ignored, and nor should it be, as these evidences make it apparent that at least the themes of conventional and contemporary morality stem from this very echo chamber that I have just shown you today. But this doesn't mean we can't begin to fix it. Matter of fact, now that we know we're in an echo chamber, we have our whole lives to fix it. So instead of continuing to be passive, taking our beliefs as granted or absolute, we must become active in defining ourselves. We must examine our beliefs and our understandings, and then we must test them by being open to other viewpoints, even inviting challenge in whatever form that may appear. And even then, at the end of the day, you might not find yourself changed all that much. And that's okay, as just by allowing yourself to be open, to be challenged, you will not only become a greater knower of yourself, but you'll grow as a person. And I promise you this, you will become better for it. Thank you.